Hey, everybody. Happy Tuesday. It's Nancy here from American Pet Professionals and happy Valentine's Day. We are airing here on Valentine's Day to you. And today I am really excited to bring you another guest and a member of American Pet Professionals. We are happy to be back on digging into the pet industry. If you are watching from our live, we're broadcasting on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. And if you're listening to our future podcast episode, thank you for listening. So, wherever you're watching or listening from, I really appreciate you being here. But I wanted to introduce you to Maria Supple of Posh Dog Life. Hey,
Hello, everyone. Happy Valentine's Day. It's great to be here.
hey, Maria. Good to see you. I'm so glad you could be here.
I'm actually normally in Florida, but I'm in Vail this week
Oh,
on ski
nice.
holiday with my family. They're on break, so
Very nice. And I love your heart-shaped
I I
hearts
am
on your sweater for
I am
Valentine's
dressed
Day.
for the occasion.
Yes, we were both dressed for the occasion. So I'm really happy to have you here today. And here on Digging into the Pet Industry, we dig right in. So I wanted to jump in to, I know you have an extensive background in journalism, and I would love to hear about that and share your experiences with that with our audience.
Sure. So I am still a journalist. Actually, I use Maria Supple for my dog business, and
Okay,
my journalistic name is Maria Atanasov. It's my byline.
gotcha.
I've been a journalist for more than 25 years with global media. I spent 10 years in New York. I've always been a business journalist. I spent 10 years in New York with Fortune Magazine as a reporter, Smart Business Magazine covering online retail and from a technology angle. I then went to the Wall Street Journal, spent 11 years at the Wall Street Journal in a variety of roles from copy editor to page one editor.
Wow.
And the Wall Street Journal took me to Europe. I went with the Wall Street Journal to Brussels, in 1995. I'm sorry,
Wow.
not 1995, 2005. Excuse me. I went over in 2005 with the Wall Street Journal and was in Brussels 4.5 years doing page one news, leading the news section, page one, two, three, politics, until my children were born. And I have twins who are now 16. And once my twins were born, I very quickly switched from covering page one news to features. It was more manageable with my new role as a mommy.
Mommy to twins, no less.
Yeah, with twins, no less. It was, a little bit difficult to keep doing 11 o'clock closes
Yeah,
on
yeah.
deadline. So I very quickly shifted to features, and I went with the Journal. I moved to London and went with the Wall Street Journal to London, and again in the Weekend Journal, covering arts and leisure, luxury goods, travel, fashion. I used to edit the wine column, so again, luxury goods. So that was great because we covered all of Europe, and then we had synergy with the US edition and the Asian edition. And then from there, I had a lot of print experience. I didn't have as much of the online web experience. So I went to the BBC, left the Journal in 2014, joined the BBC, and was a deputy editor of a new website for them called BBC Capital, which is about your work life capital, careers in management. Again, we did a lot of travel stories, collecting from like an art standpoint. So it was about your personal financial capital is kind
Yeah.
of the types of stories we did. We decided to move back, to the States in 2017, so it'll be coming up on 6 years that we've been 6 years in July that we'll have moved back, and it was just the right time. When you're an expat, you just have to choose whether you wanna raise your children. We were raising our children as Brits. We decided we really wanna move back to the States, and there's natural breaks in time. You kinda move your children before they go to middle school,
Yeah.
or you wait till after high school and you back when they're off in college. So from a family standpoint, we just decided we wanted a lifestyle change. We were tired of dark, gray, cold weather, wanted the sunshine. I had grown up in Miami. So we decided to kind of just really do a lifestyle move down to Florida. Um, South Florida is a very different media market. I've been in huge media markets, London and New York. Doesn't get any bigger than that. I've been at the
Right.
top global media, and
Yep.
South Florida is a much smaller. There's a lot of media, but it's a much
Yeah.
smaller fish compared to being in New York.
Yeah.
So I very quickly switched to because I'd had a lot of experience with travel and luxury goods as a journalist. I very quickly switched to that industry, but from a marketing standpoint. So I went into marketing for MSC Cruises, they hired me in to actually be a ghostwriter for Martha Stewart. So they had forged a partnership with Martha Stewart, and I spent 2 years traveling the Caribbean, meeting with chefs, farm to table experiences. It was wonderful. I developed this
I
entire
can't
program,
imagine.
but it was literally all travel writing. It was
See,
amazing.
this is I wanna stop you because this is what I love about the pet industry and people that come into the pet industry in a different part of their life, because most people don't pay attention to all the incredible things that you've done in your previous life, right? I know you're still a journalist, but if you didn't work for the Wall Street Journal, would you have ever ended up in Brussels and then worked in London and, like, all these things and
No, I wouldn't
yeah,
have, and it was
right?
like and I had double majored in university. I was a foreign correspondent, so I double majored in Russian. So when I was at
Wow.
Fortune, and I speak Bulgarian fluently from my heritage, and so when I double majored, I was like, well, and growing up in Miami, I took Spanish because that's what you take in high
Right,
school.
right, right.
And when I got to university, I thought, well, wouldn't it be neat to have a second Slavic language, and then I can use it to be a foreign correspondent? And in fact, that's what I did when I worked for
Yeah.
Fortune. I was an Eastern European correspondent. I interviewed the president of the Ukraine at the time,
Wow.
Leonid Kuchma. I interviewed the president of Bulgaria at the time at the United Nations. So I would never have had that exposure if I hadn't have double majored in a language and used it as a foreign correspondent.
Right.
And the Wall Street Journal gave me that opportunity to then go work abroad because they had bureaus abroad. So, yeah, it all kind of feeds onto itself.
Yeah, it's
Right.
really incredible, and just the experience that you have had in those careers and the things that you've learned and the fun experiences that you've done, it's really incredible to me because I really just feel like, I always say that back in the day, like 20 something years ago, when I said, oh, I'm a pet professional, nobody knew what that was. And they didn't take into account all the other things that I've done in my life or that you've done in your life or other pet professionals to bring you current to what you're doing now. So I always find it fascinating to hear about everybody's background and what their experiences
Well,
are and
and
what they've done.
I think sometimes we get so wed that we've only done one thing for so long that you don't realize that your experience parlays very nicely into other professions.
Yep.
So I always thought of, true diehard journalists, they always think of marketing as the dark side. Like, I'd never do that. And the
You have
reality
to
is
if you're gonna have your
I
own
I have
business.
covered luxury goods for the Wall Street Journal for so long that actually it's such a if you're doing travel and you're
Mhm.
kind of doing these stories, it parlays into the travel industry. South Florida, what does South Florida do well? Travel. It's a travel
Yeah.
destination. So that opened up and luxury goods. So that opened up so many more opportunities to me when I got back to Florida. And in fact, I wasn't necessarily originally looking to go work for a cruise line, but cruise lines are massive business in
Yeah.
South Florida, and because they have these partnership with these big celebrities, we had just launched this new partnership with Martha Stewart, and that's what they brought me in to do, is to do the Super Bowl account on environmental awareness for coral reefs and Martha Stewart. And so I had this wonderful run there, but unfortunately, we all know what happened with the cruise lines is,
Yeah.
thrown a curveball.
Yep.
COVID hit,
Yeah.
and COVID froze the travel industry as we know it, and people are it's just starting to come
Come
back.
back. Yeah,
But what
yeah.
happened is I survived several rounds of layoffs, and I found myself suddenly going from the ships weren't sailing, the CDC wasn't allowing anyone to sail anywhere because of COVID, and I went from doing this wonderful job of writing for Martha Stewart and the Super Bowl. We froze everything. We were doing crisis communication, and they laid off 2/3 of my staff. So what happened? I was writing all the crisis communication emails that we were sending out to customers on cruise refunds and COVID protocols,
Yeah.
and it suddenly went from this really fun, amazing job traveling the Caribbean to crisis communications, which everyone had to do. I mean, it was
Right.
unique to me. It just, I suddenly woke up and then all of a sudden one day I got caught in one of the round of layoffs. Would I have ever expected that? No, but you know what? It makes you very quickly. There was no one anyone could have done. COVID hit so many industries, so
Yeah.
many businesses shut down. And I just happened to be in an industry that happened to, and I kind of had a moment, when you're home, you're thinking about what do I wanna do next? I've been working 80-hour weeks in pretty much every job I've done since I was 22 years
Yep.
old. I just stopped for a moment. I mean, even having twins at the Wall Street Journal as page 1 editor, I'd never stopped. It
Yeah.
never crossed my mind to just not work,
But
like,
I
not
think that's what COVID did for everybody, right?
it
No
did
matter what, if you were
right.
having your own business, if you were working for somebody else, we all kind of were forced to be put on pause, right?
Of course,
You
of
know,
course.
I've worked from home forever, so, for that part of it, for me, it didn't really make a difference, but, like, being forced to not be able to go anywhere, to attend pet events,
Mhm.
things being canceled, I got busier than ever, but so let me ask you this, how did your transition, obviously, it was COVID that led you into the direction you're in now, but from being a very busy journalist, working those 80-hour work weeks to wanting to have your own business, was there always any inkling in your entire life, in your career, that you wanted to do your own business over the years?
No,
No.
not until COVID, and I started thinking
Interesting.
about, "What do I wanna do next?" And my kids were just about to start high school, and I thought, "Do I wanna be the mom that's traveling on a ship, that's flying, that's always on deadline, or do I wanna be there for my kids and be able to enjoy some of their events? Do I wanna work 80 hours for somebody else or work 80 hours for myself?"
Right.
So I started thinking like, what do I wanna do next? I'm like, I think I'm gonna start my own business. There we go. And I was like, what do I want that business to be? Because I've been a business journalist for so long. I've written about balance sheets and bank statements and
Mhm.
financials and from both sides, from the hardcore business side of it to I used to cover small business, to how do you start a small business, to when I was at Fortune, I covered small business. That was my beat for a couple of years.
That's so
So
cool.
it's kind of putting in all, and then at the Journal, I did page one, politics and economy, but I also did luxury goods. So it's using like all the things I've been writing about for 25
And
years
learning about while you're
and
writing
learning
about them.
about and taking all the things I've learned and applying it, which is kind of scary when it's easier to write about it from a
Oh,
distance, but
yeah.
when you're doing it yourself, you go, oh my gosh, like, I'm gonna apply this to my own business,
Mhm.
but the thing is I'd had now as a straight journalist, I didn't have that marketing experience, but because I've done 2 years of marketing, I suddenly had all the marketing experience and all the consumer we used to track consumers and their interests and what they wanted and all the data, so I had all of that coming into it, so I thought, "Wow, wonderful way to blend my journalistic experience with my marketing experience and do something I'm really passionate about." And the reality is, like a lot of people, we got a COVID puppy. And we got
Mhm.
a COVID puppy because we have a very elder dog who, after we first moved here, was given 6 months to live, diagnosed with late stage heart disease. He is still going. He's 14.
Aw.
He's like a senior citizen. We've got his pill pack of
Yeah, yeah.
noon, evening, night, all his meds. He's amazing, and he's a greyhound mix. In England, they're called lurchers. He's a lurcher. He's a rescue. We love him so much, and he loves us, and I think he hangs on for us.
Yeah.
But at the time, we're like, we don't know how much longer we'll have him, so we'll get a puppy and help transition everyone, the family, transition him.
Yeah, yeah.
He loves that puppy so much. I mean, she's actually I still call her the puppy,
But
but
that's what happens a lot of times, you get a puppy with a senior dog, and it makes that senior dog kick back
it has
into
given him
life.
a new lease on life,
Yep.
but at the time, I when we got the puppy, of course, I signed up for, like, BarkBox and all
Yeah, yeah.
all the get the boxes, and I was, just thinking about, "What do I wanna do next? What do I wanna do next?" And here it was in front of me. I spend a fortune on my dogs every month,
Mhm.
spoiled and rotten, hands down. They are family. They are my
Yep.
family. They are just as much my family. I probably have more photos of my dogs than I do of my kids on my phone.
Yep.
It's true. It's true. We're a little bit dog mad. But because of this, I also noticed the trend that all of a sudden everyone else was getting COVID puppies. And
Mhm.
friends of mine who would never consider getting a dog ever, they all went out and got dogs too. And I said, there's something interesting going on here. And of
Yep.
course, no one could go out and shop and everything was going online. So I thought, well, I've got the web experience from the BBC. I've got the writing experience. I've covered luxury good. I've got the marketing experience too from ghostwriting for Martha Stewart. So I do all the content curation. I do everything myself. So I developed the website. Um,
But how did you come up with the concept of the posh lifestyle? So, the name of the business is Posh Dog
Posh Dog
Life.
Life. So yeah, so the name of the business is Posh Dog Life. I came up with the business because where I saw a bit of a niche in the market, I didn't want to necessarily compete with PetSmart and Petco and do something that everyone else is doing.
Mhm.
And what I noticed that there's a lot of high end luxury items, but they're often on Etsy or it's very, very small
Mhm.
designers doing it all themselves and selling one-off pieces just by themselves, but they're not that sophisticated to do it as a forum on a boutique.
Mhm.
And so I just decided I saw enough interest and I wanted to scale in a different way than I don't want to scale on Amazon. Like that's a different
Beast.
target
Yeah.
audience. I
Yep.
knew exactly who I wanted to go after, who my audience was, and we can talk about that in a minute. But I very quickly realized I did 7 months of R&D. So, I think it's naive to think that anyone just starts a business, "Oh, tomorrow I launched a website and that's what I did." Like, I
Right.
spent 7 months developing this and figuring out what the product would be, how that evolved. In fact, when I first was thinking about the business, before I had a name for it, before I test marketed names and logos, I did that in my test marketing too. Here's 20 logos. Which one do you want? Went out to all my journalist friends at every media who had dogs. Which one do you like? Which font do you like?
Yeah, yeah.
Which name do you like better?
That can
So
be
I
overwhelming though, because a lot of everybody has an opinion,
yeah,
right?
everyone
And
has
I
it.
think
Everyone
that
has it.
I've done
But
that before, but that I find that very difficult because then you're looking at everybody's feedback and then that can be really overwhelming. So it depends on your personality
I
type.
have a thick skin. You have to have
I
a
have a
thick
thick
skin with it.
skin, but
Yeah, I
still,
know.
you know?
And I didn't go with the logo. I went with a variation of the logo that I thought I would go with a different logo, but it was so overwhelming, the number like, I had
Yeah,
people vote, like, the number of votes, I'm like, "That's the logo."
there
And I
you
was like, "You
go.
know what? If that's what's appealing to people, that's what they're gonna that is what's speaking to them." So, initially, I will tell you when I first started developing this, I walk a lot with my dogs, and maybe that's also because when I was in England, we used to walk a lot in the rain.
Right.
And I was gonna come up with a welly boot line with matching raincoats, with matching everything with your dog. That idea fizzled so fast that that is not at all what I launched with, but that's what I came into it thinking is that's what I'm gonna develop, matching raincoats with welly boots and the matching collar, which
Right.
could still be a great business model, and I was gonna do, like, one thing, that's it.
Yeah.
And then I very quickly saw, I'm like, "No, there's a different need here, and I can do different." I'm not gonna be everything for everyone, like, I don't do dog bags, I don't do handbags, I don't do dog bags at the moment, but, I mean, that's not what my model is. I'm doing luxury dog apparel and accessories. I mean, that
Oh,
is my and dog collars, harnesses, apparel, and accessories.
okay.
Those are the 4 things that I'm started with, and I can keep branching
Adding
out.
on to
I
that.
started doing dog gifts. I'm gonna do dog hats next. So you can't start with everything.
Right. So
And
let me
so
ask you this. When did you actually officially launch?
so I officially registered my LLC December 2 years ago, but I didn't launch yet. I just registered everything so I'd have the name,
Yep.
licensing, and then I spent those the next 7 months developing it, the website, getting products up, writing product descriptions, building it
Mhm.
all up before you can go live.
Right.
And I officially launched July 15th, a year and a half ago. So it'll be 2 years this July.
Okay.
That website is live. And so that was with a lot of market research, a lot of webinars, a lot of just
Yep.
learning the industry and how to, and it wasn't so much that I didn't know how to design a website, but it was what was the product space? I would listen to webinars from competitors on what was hitting. I would listen to Pinterest webinars on what the hot trends were.
Yeah.
If there was a video, I watched it. If there was a class, I took it.
Which
Everything
I just
online.
wanna pause you for a second there because I think if anybody's listening, I commend you for that because a lot of people have an idea, they might do some research, but they may not do enough research. So you were doing all that before you said, "You know what? Now we're gonna launch." Which
Oh
and
yeah.
then learning as you
Oh yeah.
go continued, which is so important because I feel like there's a lot of great ideas out there, but people don't always do their due diligence and research and learn. I know we were talking before we went live that we're going to be at Global Pet Expo in March of this year. And, there's many times that I'm at Global and I see a product and my heart sinks because I'm like, I guess they didn't do research. There's, 10 other products that are super similar. And not to say that that product can't be a success. Maybe they have created a better version of the same type of product, right? It's similar in any industry, but I think it's really smart that you took your time to really do that research and development.
And I think it's also being humble enough to being able to admit that I learn something new every single day. This is
Mhm.
what I love about journalism. Like right now, I'm
Yeah.
teaching. As an aside, I do still do editorial consulting. I'm teaching a class at Harvard at the moment. I was on a call for this Harvard webinar to alumni Harvard Business School alumni entrepreneurs. It's an incubator.
That's so cool.
And we're doing a 10-week writing seminar on how to write like a journalist, and it's through the Institute for Thought Leadership, because everyone wants to be a thought leader in their field, and I
Right.
learned so many great things from these entrepreneurs who just generally just don't know how to write, but they have great business concepts and great ideas and they're passionate about it, and so I'm passionate about this, and I learn something new every day as a journalist, and I learn something new every day as a business owner, and I think the moment you stop learning is the moment you're too comfortable in your
Yeah.
industry, and I feel like there's not my model is not perfect. I'm learning every day, and I tweak things accordingly. I think for me, the key is because I'm still young. I mean, not I'm not really that young, so I turned 50 this year, but my business is very young still. I think it's important to stay flexible
Mhm.
and to try different things and not give up and just tweak. I tweak. I constantly tweak. And
So let
the
me ask you this: what was your biggest challenge in getting your store launched? You did all that R&D. You're learning, learning, learning. What was the biggest challenge of like, okay, now we're launching?
That's a very good question. I think the biggest challenge is when you're an unknown, it's becoming a known. And
Yes.
I'm still in growth mode. So the reality is, they always say businesses don't, it's usually 3 years for a business to be profitable. And I'm sure that that's going to be so, I'm coming up on 2 years. I'm still unprofitable, but I think this is the year that I'm starting to turn the corner,
Yeah.
and I think that's because I spend so much on marketing and social media that every penny that I earn that comes in goes right out the door, and
Yeah.
I spend it right immediately back on marketing
Yep.
because people need to know who you are. So I know my products are solid, I know my products are good, I know the vision is right, everything's going in the right direction. People love the website, they like the product offerings. The synergy's there. I think for me, it's volume, it's getting volume, and the more you get out there and people know who you are and trust your brand, it's building trust in your brand.
Yep.
Like anything, like if you like to drink Diet Coke, you're gonna have a hard time switching from Diet Coke to even a new Coke product
It's so
because you're like,
true.
"I don't know about that weird flavor, jalapeno." No, I'm just making it up, but, like, I don't know about jalapeno and Coke doesn't really sound right. So, think about it, even Coke, they test market all the time, and
Yep.
they have flops, huge
Yeah,
flops
every business is gonna have
flavors.
something that doesn't work, and I think that that's so important to learn from that and move on from it and not get stuck in it.
Correct.
Because some people can get really, stuck in the fact that something didn't work, and it takes some time to figure that out for some entrepreneurs,
And I
and
think it's sometimes too for me is because I work with 350 vendors globally. I work with some in the US, some in Europe, some in Asia. I really work with vendors all over the world. And the thing is, not all vendors are created equal.
of
And
course,
it
yeah.
is a little bit, especially in the beginning, it's gauging your vendors. Like I would say now I have a pretty good set of vendors.
Yeah.
It's vetting them. That takes time too. And sometimes, you have to cut the cord pretty quickly
Yeah.
and or you didn't know, and it's embarrassing, and you move on. You go,
Yeah.
"Okay, I'm not carrying that vendor anymore because that's not the quality that I." So you learn from it, and you're like,
Yeah.
"That's not the quality that's not what I expect, that's not my customer expects." I take the product off, like, I'm
Yeah.
not using the product, or I find a different vendor, and I find a better product.
It's so
So
important to do that because that's how you're gonna keep that trust factor and that know and like for people that are coming to your pet business. Let me ask you this, who
sure.
is your customer for Posh Dog Life?
So I
Who's your
know exactly
avatar?
who market. So I think it's very, very important to do market research. So I have 2 main audiences. I have kind of, my core audience is 26-year-old women and older, and that really breaks down quite differently, right? So my core, I'd say 90% of that audience is women 40 and over, and it is women like me who either so it's women who are either married, have children, the children are grown off to college, or the children are in high school and don't care about their mom anymore, talk to the hand, and your dog, you suddenly are like this empty nester, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, what do I do? Like my who do I put all that love onto?" And these women go out and get a dog, and then they transfer their love for their children, which they still, of course, love their children, but it's a different dynamic now, all to their dog. Single women who have never had children, don't want children for
Yeah,
whatever reason, and, just that's not the stage of their life they're at, have no interest in it, but they love their dog, so they get a dog, and their dog is their surrogate child. That's a large population. Retirees, women who either are, widowed or divorcees who don't have another partner, but they have a dog, and the dog is their loyal companion. And also, 10% of my audience is kind of men. It's a very small percentage of my
mhm,
audience is men. And then the other part of my audience is I do a lot of wedding business. So in my day, no one ever included
interesting.
their dogs in their wedding,
Right,
ever. It just wasn't done. And I've been married 20 too long, 22 years. Together with my husband, 27 years, like half my life, right? Um, but it just wasn't something that you didn't include your dog as the ring bearer.
Yeah.
Now everyone is including their dogs in their wedding. So that audience for me is really kind of 26 to 40-year-olds, and I do a lot of wedding business.
Interesting.
And then interestingly, demographically, my split is, because I'm global, I do worldwide, most of it the US, but a quarter of my business comes from Canada. So
Interesting.
I have a lot of customers. I mean, that's saying a lot for a small business.
Yeah.
Actually speaking to I'm here in Colorado this week, but I met someone last night. He's a venture capitalist who invests a lot in, he invested in dog businesses in Canada. And he said there's 3 things important to Canadians. It's Canadian nationalism, hockey, and then their dogs, because dogs are family. And it is true. Canadians love their dogs, but what there's not enough in the market is the high end dog apparel. There's a lot of dog apparel companies, but there's not a lot that do the high end, the luxury party dresses or, so
That's
that's
really
an a
that's
really
interesting.
small
So you
market.
have a few different customers, like
We
different
do.
ages and different stages in their life, and people that
Absolutely.
have expendable income that they can spoil their pets on. When you have an
Correct.
order come in, since you work with vendors all over the world, do you fulfill the order? Do you have help fulfilling the orders? How does that
So
work with you?
it depends. So I'm mostly a drop shipper. So I curate my beautiful website. I work with my vendors just for the sake of speed and cost because postage is so expensive everywhere. I mean, shipping's probably it's a huge problem
Yeah.
for anyone. I actually have my vendor ship directly for me. And that works well because everything has a tracking number. And I'm not Amazon. I don't ever say you're going to have it in 24 hours. I
Right.
can't do it.
Yeah.
I say 2 to 4 weeks, but we're talking about dog products here. So for the most part, that works. I include free shipping in my with my orders. So free standard shipping, I say takes 2 to 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Now, if I have it in stock at the house because I actually work out of my house and I have inventory in my one of my garages is kind of my warehouse, per se. So, in the past year, something new that I've been doing is I've started doing dog shows, and, I did it my first year. My first year was solely focused on building the website, building the brand, and then once that kind of was like, "Okay, I'm kind of where everything's direction I want it to be," I started, doing dog shows, regional and local dog shows, arts and craft fairs. So I've basically, since November, have been every single weekend, I have been exhibiting at some show or another. It could be a farmer's market, it could be a big, arts and crafts festival, it could be a dog fashion show. So that for that, I do carry inventory because I'm a vendor, so I need to
Yeah.
have clearly, you don't go with an empty table, I need to have inventory for that. So if I have the inventory in stock here at my boutique, I will ship it directly, so it's USPS, takes a couple days. So that comes pretty fast. That's always
Yeah.
fast in the 2 weeks. Again, goes with tracking. Um, and then anything internationally or other parts of the US, the vendors will ship it for me, and I again include the free shipping. I absorb that, in my pricing.
Right. Well, that's really great. So you have a handle on that, and you are only a year and a half in. So that could also change as you move forward in how you fulfill things, right? You might have some
Yeah,
vendor shipping, or you might get that warehouse. You never know, right?
correct. I mean, as I grow, I mean, I'm still in growth mode, so as
Yeah.
I grow, my model will change at some point. Like, right now, I'm a one-woman show. At some point,
Hmm.
once it does well, like, I may need a full staff. So this is part of
Yeah.
growing the business and figuring out what events want to do. And I think for me, what's important to do the local. I mean, because I'm a global business, the local events don't matter as much. But for me, where they matter is South Florida's huge market for dogs,
Yeah.
and
But
it's
wait, I
getting
want to stop you with that
sure.
because even if you are a global brand, you have a website, all of that, and I wanted to say this after you're done, is that it's so important for anybody watching that's new to pet industry, new to a business, even if you are in the business for a while, to be that vendor, to be at those community events, those pet expos. A lot of people will say to me, "Oh, I was a vendor, but I didn't make as much money as I had hoped." And I'm like, "But you're not accounting for the marketing and
Mhm.
advertising, people knowing about your brand now, gaining those email addresses if you do a raffle or having anybody, like there's so many different facets of doing that. I've done that as well in the past. I've did every weekend for like 12 weekends in a row in the fall years ago when I was launching out different parts of brand. And I wasn't selling anything. It was just pure self-promotion of American Pet
I'll
Professionals.
tell you
So,
what's really interesting about it is, first of all, it gets you I can choose whatever I want to curate onto my website. and I have a pretty good eye for fashion and what I think will work. I mean, I
Yeah.
pick the products I want to sell on my website. But when you go to a show, it really shows you how people like, I'm an online business, so I'm not a retail I don't have a storefront.
Right.
Well, I don't see people otherwise come in and touch and feel the product and feel the item or ask questions about it. When you go to a dog show, you get to really or any of these shows, you get to see how people interact with the product, what they like, what they don't like,
Yeah.
what they
It's
gravitate
great customer
toward.
research.
It's really fast. I love it.
Yeah.
Great customer research for
Yeah.
me. Also, all of these shows, no matter what show you do, they have vendor fees.
Yeah.
So, in the beginning too, sometimes you don't make the vendor fee or you're like, "Oh, it's frustrating." You're like, "I've been there all day and
Yep.
I basically did this for free
But you
because I
could have
just
gained 5 customers that are now gonna go to your website and see.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. But what I do gain for it is, do you know what I've gotten out of those? I get people who come up and say, I follow you on Instagram and your stuff is so much better even in person. I thought it was beautiful online,
Right.
but it's so much nicer in person." And I'm like, "Wow, thank you. That's such a high compliment. I really appreciate that." She goes, "I'm gonna tell all my friends about you." Or I get people who say, this has just happened. I had a client come, literally the wind was gusting. It felt like a hurricane. Everything was getting blown over at all the vendors.
Been there.
She said, "I love what your staff." She goes, "Listen, I represent Beachcomber Hotels or part of Hilton. I would like you to come be an exclusive vendor for us." So I'm doing my first show with Hilton as an exclusive vendor in a couple weeks. And that came out of at one of these little arts and craft
Yep.
festivals in Fort Lauderdale because she came and she loved my stuff. And she said, "We have so many in this hotel, which is an apart hotel. We have so many clients who own dogs.
Yeah.
I want you to come and do events for us." And I'm like, "I wanna be your exclusive vendor." She goes, "Okay."
Yeah. That's
So,
incredible, and that's what happens.
everybody
People
loves
think that if you're not just making up the vendor fee, that's not always what it's about, and
No.
that is a hurdle for a lot of newer businesses when they're getting out there,
Well,
and
it's
I'm
hard
like,
because it's expensive,
"Of
right?
course
These
it
shows
is."
are expensive, and if you're just going and you spend all day there and you don't cover your fee
Mhm.
and you also from these learn which ones you wanna do and which ones you don't
Right.
want to do. So
Exactly.
some shows you do and you go, "That was a total flop," and other shows you do and I'm like, "Wow, that was amazing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sign up to do that one again."
Right.
And so you don't have to do I
You
don't
don't
do
have to
every
do
single
every
show,
show,
and
and you
you can
also
choose.
wanna make sure that it's part of your marketing budget. If you can't
Correct,
afford to do every show, don't do every show, but don't
correct,
negate it because you had one bad experience. I mean,
correct, but I
yeah,
pick and choose now. Now I
yeah.
kind of pick and choose, like, it's you learn from it. You learn which ones are successful,
Mhm.
which ones aren't, which ones have, what you're gaining from it, and when you're losing more than you gain, not just financially, but just if it's
Right.
not the right audience, or
Yeah.
then you say, "You know what? I'm not doing that show anymore. I learned. Thank you very much." But you also learn from other vendors. So
Yeah.
I love watching what I get so many tips from other vendors too, who maybe all they do is shows. They don't even have an online presence. But I also learn strategy from other vendors. So
Yeah,
I
and you
think
also meet other
that's
people
great.
that you could be in your network and in your sphere, right? So it's
Yeah.
really I think doing shows are great. I kind of scaled back over the last few years because it's been too busy, but I still will do 1 or 2 shows during the year
Yeah.
and show up and just promote what we're doing here at American Pet Professionals because you're always gonna meet new people. So I'm gonna pivot because we have a few more
Sure.
minutes left, but I wanna know, is there anything about the pet industry that you did not expect going into it as a business?
Yes, I 2 things. I didn't expect how big a hit, Canada would be.
Mm,
I did not realize as starting this up that that would be such a core market for me, and
interesting.
I am flabbergasted. I mean, I
Yeah.
love it. Um, Secondly, I think I'm surprised at that there's no standard, and this catches me on my products too that I sell, is there's no standard size charts for dog in the dog world.
Yeah.
And for dog apparel, like I have 350 vendors, every vendor has their own size chart. And so I always have to disclose that on the website. I always say, "Please look at the size chart with the product." And
Yeah.
that's something that still catches me because people will say, "Oh, but I ordered the 2X and it's way too small." And I said, "But did you measure against the size chart?" And even though there's a tick box on my website that says,
Right.
"I measured against the size chart."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Well, it says it's a 2X for small dogs."
Yeah,
And they're like,
yeah.
"But how can it be a 2X for small dogs?" And I said, There's no standard sizing.
Yeah.
every vendor
It's
has
also
their own.
difficult because dogs come in all shapes and
They
sizes.
do,
Friends of mine just
they
adopted a
do.
little he's a dachshund, probably lab, probably basset, probably a little Rhodesian Ridgeback, like, he's long, but he's got a big head, so, it is
Well,
difficult to have
it's
those
interesting that you
standards.
said that, and that's something I say a lot is, it's not everyone that this is something where I do niche myself is not every dog is a size 0 or a size 4 there because there's no standard sizing. They do come in all shapes and sizes. Part of the
Mhm.
reason with me launching this too is I do niche a little bit differently, and I do things for big dogs where I can. There's a lot on the market for small dogs, and of course, I carry a ton for small dogs.
Yeah.
But where possible, I always carry things for large
Mhm.
where I can source it.
Yeah.
I carry things for large breeds because so many dogs have like, I have a greyhound. Greyhounds have the most odd shape. They have little necks, they have a big
Yeah.
chest. Your dog's a German Shorthair Pointer. She also has a big chest. So if you have a little French Bulldog or if you have a Chihuahua versus a Greyhound, every dog is such a
I
different
think
shape, and
I
so
think the solution is to really and some people do this better than others, but to really have good explainer videos on how to properly measure your dog. If you don't have that on
Mm,
your website, it might be something that you guys can
that's a
do
good idea.
because I think if you have those random shape like even I have a pit bull, but he's not the same size as every pit bull out there, right? He's a
Correct.
little
And you
stockier.
find that with pugs too, with
Yes.
pugs, 'cause some are
So
very chunky pugs and
I
some
think
are not so chunky pugs.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think teaching pet parents on how to do it. I had to order a harness not too long, maybe like a year ago, and I was worried that it wasn't going to come in on the right size. And it was actually perfect because there was an explainer video, a sizing chart, all the things. So, that becomes your due diligence on teaching your customers and
It
teaching those pet
is.
parents on how to measure their dog because they're going to click that little box and then it will help you in the future not to have those people saying it's too small or it's too big or
Yeah,
it
or then
doesn't
I have to
fit.
do an exchange, but
Right.
if I often I mean, often if it's something that's custom, I will reach out before I place the order because the custom stuff, I've got designers now because 'cause I'm
Of
signing up
course.
designers,
Yeah.
and I don't want them to do a couture dress and not have it
Fit.
fit. So I'll say,
Yeah.
Did you or did you measure" especially on the higher end
Mhm.
items, because I don't wanna have to first of all, I don't wanna have to exchange it as a business owner, and I want them to get it and fit, but I prefer for every customer to get their item and have it fit the right
Right.
time,
Right.
the first time around, and I will tell you people are so appreciative, especially I have it's called a little Churchill dog suit, it's so cute, but that's a custom-made little suit, so I say, "Please, please, these run a little small, please measure, here's the size chart,"
Yeah.
and 9 out of 10 times people will change the size, and they said, "Oh, thank you so much for" I'm like, "Please confirm before I place the order," and they're great about it,
Yeah. Yeah,
so they
yeah.
appreciate that. So
So my last question to you, or second to last question to you, is what is next for Posh Dog Life? I know you're still in growth mode, but what is the next thing that you're gonna be doing?
so the next thing is I'm going to continue adding lines here and there. Everyone like I'm gonna do hats next, like woolly hats. That's gonna be my next line. So I'm gonna continue expanding lines. Um, and shows. And I think the next thing for me is really just to keep you don't wanna be do too much though. You don't wanna have so I mean, sometimes I go on sites and there's so much product. I'm like,
It's overwhelming.
it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
I don't need to do that. That's not what I wanna do. I'll expand some lines as I feel people have asked me for it. Sometimes I get asked about hats.
Yeah.
But really for me, I think it's also growing the designers.
Mhm.
So trying to be a little bit possibly less reliant on some of my international vendors and more homegrown vendors, and just building those relationships, which I think the shows help with that
Yeah.
because that will speed up my shipping times in some cases as well.
I think Maria also for because you're an online business that you can also rotate between what's popular, what's in season right now,
I
right?
do always,
Yeah, it's
always.
kind
And
of
you can
like the old school if you have a retail
always.
stores that really move their stuff around, change their end caps, it makes it more interesting for customers when they come in each time and they're like, "Oh, I didn't know you had this." Even if it was something
Yeah.
you had in the back of the store. So it was something that you
Yep,
had on your
that's
website.
absolutely
Yeah,
that is 100% true. I right now, if you go to my website, it's Valentine's Day, so I've had
right.
Valentine's up for the past 2 weeks. As
Yeah,
soon tomorrow, I'm gonna be changing that up and putting a different collection up.
yeah, yeah.
And so we're coming into spring, so I constantly rotate that, and you're absolutely right. I also do something where I do a newsletter every week or so. I
Mhm.
send out an email blast to subscribers
Yeah.
with themes of like today again, it was Valentine's Day, and they'll have like pics. I'll have pics of selection. Sometimes I'll do just for small dogs, sometimes I'll just for big dogs. I did sweaters last week. So it is constantly kind of keeping in front of people, but without bombarding them. So I'm very sensitive to the fact that we all have email overload.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, I am selling dog products. Like no one needs an email from me. I don't care how important I think I am. No one needs an email from my business every single day. They just
Yeah.
don't. And so, if I did that a lot, I would probably have a lot of unsubscribes. So
You
I'm very
would.
happy to say that I don't have, my audience continues to build,
Yeah.
and I don't have that many people who have unsubscribed from my newsletter, which I'm like, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So it's continuing to build. So I think really is getting to that 2.5, getting to that profitability mark, which I think will happen this year. So I'm on target. Everything's on target, everything's
Mhm.
on target. It's just, being patient with it and being flexible, revising the formula,
Yeah.
carrying more things that people want to buy, listening to my readers and, really pushing the please measure your dog, the size charts.
Yeah.
But I think for me, designers, I'd like to sign up. It's really kind of my two, like any audience. Like I sell a lot for broad market. I have things from 17.99 on the site, but I have things that go all the way. The couture dresses start at 124, the handmade dresses. So I'd like to sign up more of the couture designers, but they are a much smaller percentage of my market because not people more likely to buy a dog collar, a bandana versus a couture dress. Not every customer will
Right.
dress up.
Not everybody's at the New York fashion shows with their dogs
Correct,
like this
correct.
past
But that's
weekend.
still part of my audience.
Yeah,
So
it's still there. It's still, I
it's
mean,
kind of
I've been to a lot of
it's
those.
50%. So
Yeah.
it's offering things for different types of customers.
Yeah, I've been to a lot of those pet fashion shows and saw all the couture for many years. So it's always fun to see friends that have their dogs in the shows. I'm always wanting to get Cody in the show, but they never want a big dog. They always have the little dogs. But you
But
know
that's
what?
something to change the mindsets on a little bit because, I
Yeah.
mean, that's what I keep pushing too, is like, well, you know what? A lot of people have I have big dogs.
Yeah.
And growing up, I had 3 size dogs. My mom had a
Mhm.
little Fifi, she had a little Maltese, and who slept in there at my parents' bed, and then we had a Schnauzer mix, and we had a Doberman. So we had literally it ran the
Yeah.
gamut of sizes, and the thing is, when I was growing up, probably like when you were growing up, people didn't really dress their dogs in that manner. I mean, you might put a dog sweater on, but it wasn't the craze it is
No.
now where
Yeah.
dog fashion is a big thing. I mean, a lot of times people had their dogs in the backyard
Yeah.
growing up, but now people are really treating their dogs as family. I wanted to read something to you. So I was on, let me see if I have it up. This made me giggle this morning. This is from CNN. I always get the top news 'cause I'm still journalism. I still get all the top news of the day from different
Mhm.
media outlets. And this was just in their opener. It's their 5-minute read. It's Valentine's Day, a holiday unmistakably marked by the arrival of heart-shaped items and flower bouquets. Many around the world will celebrate their romance, but it's also a wonderful time to honor friendship and companionship. Perhaps give your pets a longer cuddle, or maybe douse your plants with a little extra water. And I loved that.
Yeah.
I really love
You
that.
read that from CNN, but I got one from Yahoo today that said something about the love for your pets, and it was all about heart health for your pets, the whole article.
And
So,
so it is,
yeah,
and look at the Super Bowl. The Super
I
Bowl,
know,
they
I
had
know.
so many there was a dog in every ad, and I
Yep.
thought, "Yes," like, I know this is the right trend, I know this is the market. The VC I met with last night, they sold the dog business in Canada, and he said, "I wish we didn't sell it." They had 66 stores in Canada, and he said, "It was doing so well that we sold it, we did well on it, but I wish we would have held on to it."
Yeah.
So he's
Well,
kicking
here's the
himself.
thing, you could, if the VC's watching and paying attention, you could always start something else. There's plenty of room in the pet industry.
There
But
is,
you know what
there
I was
is.
thinking, Maria, the other thing, and if you're not doing this, if somebody's watching, this could be a fun contest that you could do in your newsletter. And this may not be in your scape or scope of things, but when you were saying that you couldn't do or the hardest part was the different dog sizes, you could do a contest and like let's find out whose dog has the most unique measurements. All right,
That's a
and
great
do a
idea.
contest like that and have everybody measure and then have a winner and they can win, a gift certificate to
Something
your
that's a great
store.
idea.
I think it would be fun because most people don't know how to measure their dog. So it would teach them how to measure their dog. It would be fun branding for you, right?
Yep.
So it could be something to do that would be a fun way to, the different sizes of the dogs, or, you could come up with names for the different
Yep.
measurements,
How fun.
yeah,
Very
you could do
fun.
fun. All right. Well, it's been a lot of fun having you here today
Thank
on
you.
our show. And I would love to know if there's anything else you wanted to add that I didn't ask you.
No, I think we've covered it. I'm just, it's such a nice I love covering this industry because it's something that, dogs are family or
Mhm.
whether you have cats. I mean, I happen to be the dog industry, but
Yeah.
pets are so loving and compassionate and it just makes people happy. And so I think even my site, like I know like what gives me peace of mind and comfort at the end of the day is like I know I'm making people happy and with the things I'm selling and it's almost like an escape. It's like when you're window shopping and you see eye candy at the store. I feel it's the same way with pet apparel and pet sites. It's fun and it allows an outlet for release for people and they love their pets so much and the pets are, living inside and sleeping on our beds and
Yep.
spoiled, we're cooking food for them and
Yeah. Everything.
spoiled rotten and we wouldn't now think of any other way to raise our pets.
Right.
But they are anyway, I just find it so incredibly rewarding to be part of this industry and to be building my brand. Yeah.
Well, I thank you for being here. And how can anybody connect with you?
So you can reach me on poshdoglife@gmail.com. And you can find my website that way, or you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, or Pinterest at Posh Dog Life.
Awesome. And we're putting
It's really easy. The ad handle is very easy.
yeah, and we're putting that in the comment section. So if anybody wants to reach out to Maria and learn more, check out our website, please do. Maria, it's been so much fun having you on the show today. I wish
Thank you very much.
you
It's
a
been a
lot of
pleasure to be
fun where
here.
you are, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you, and I'll see you in a few weeks at Global Pet
Yes,
Expo. Thank
definitely.
you. Thanks
All
for
right.
having me on your show.
Thanks for
Take
being
care.
here. Have a good day.